Hey everybody, it's Jared Wade with Yoko CO, Yoko Co, Yoko Consulting. I like to say all of them. Just like to say all of the different variants. That way they're out there and they're available. I am joined today by Joanna. Joanna, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
This is kind of cool. Some people don't know this, but we have some amazing team members that are all over the world, and this is the first time that I get to chat with somebody that is not within like the continental United States. Joanna, can you tell everybody where you're at and where you're like the 30-second history of Joanna?
Oh, the history or just where I am? I
Well,
can
where
tell.
you're at, kind of, because you've lived in a couple different places, right?
Yeah, I am from Évora, which is south in Portugal. I have lived in Lisbon while I was studying in university. Then I met my husband in Lisbon uh, just when I started working. Then we moved to Manchester for, we lived there for 5 to 6 years. The last year doesn't really count because it was COVID and we kind of ran away for a few months back to Portugal to be near family. We just had our daughter Olivia in 2020. And then after we had Olivia, we decided to move back first to Lisbon, and then we're just outside Lisbon on the other side of the river in a very small place called Montijo.
That's awesome. Where's been your favorite place so far
Yeah.
in time? Really?
Yeah, it's the first house that we actually own, and Gary's an architect. He refurbished the whole house, and it's really great. I like my kitchen. It has a lot of cupboards. I can organize a lot. I like living here. It's quiet. It's great. Olivia's school. If I don't have a car, I can walk her to school. Um, yeah, and I
Being in
would.
Indiana, you sent photos and you shared pictures and whatnot of like just the environment that you're surrounded by with water and just the walkability, and it's just so fun. It's so cool. I don't know. There is a very large chunk of me that is very jealous that you get to live in a very cool place like that. While I do love my home and I love Indiana, there are other places out there in the world that are really fun and really cool. So if you are a traveling person, I would encourage you to travel and visit all of these. Is there a place that you haven't been yet that you're like, ooh, I would really love to go there sometime?
In the world,
Yeah.
Japan.
Oh, not Universal Studios in Florida.
Universal Studios. How we have to plan that, right?
Yeah. It's just, I mean, you can just like stop there on your way to Japan, right? It's kind of
If
on
I, if I stop at Universal Studios, it's because I'm on my way to Disney, right?
it. That's fair. That's fair. Well, everybody, if you're watching, you know what this is all about. These little Yoko Co Live episodes. I have the pleasure of talking to some of our team members here at Yoko Co about different topics and different items. And today, Joanna and I have the pleasure of talking about accessibility and specifically like digital accessibility. And it's really cool because Joanna and I are both in a committee on Yokoko for accessibility, and we're joined by a few other individuals and Yaki, Leslie, Jenna, who was supposed to be on this call with us today, but unfortunately she got sick. I guess her kids brought home some sickness, and she was like, "Trust me, you don't want me on a video thing at all. I'm not feeling great. I'm not feeling great." So Joanna and I were like, "It's cool. We got this." We jumped on the call. We know it's going to be great because neither one of us planned what we were wearing, but we both showed up with blue shirts. So
Yeah.
we know we're there. Like we are in sync. We know what's going on. So, Joanna, if you don't mind, from your kind of perspective, there was probably some sort of a moment in your life where you were like, oh, wow, accessibility really matters. And especially as a designer here at Yokoko, and you've been a designer for many, many years, where was that moment where accessibility became real for you?
It was really by chance. I'm really happy it happened, but it was a few years back. I was listening. I was in this presentation where someone that was a champion for accessibility, she was advocating for accessibility, especially for web, and she was talking about what accessibility is, how we should integrate it in our way of working, and why we should, what, not why, but for who we were doing it for. And she was talking about all these kinds of different disabilities, or the people that accessibility serves. And I had just become a mom, a mother. I just had Olivia, and I was struggling with the usual stuff, like having to do everything that I was doing before, plus looking after this precious little life. And she said, imagine that you are holding a child, and you need to, and you have groceries on your hand, and you need to, I don't know, open the door or something like that. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that way. And it is sometimes of a struggle when you have to juggle a lot of things, and you have a lot on your plate, and you have to perform a certain task, and you have a lot of constraints. And that kind of opened the horizon. And then from there, it was just realizing in time that I actually could play a big part on changing things in how we approach accessibility, and how we have that into our way of working, really. So I felt it, or I empathized, because I saw myself into one of those situations that person described.
Yeah, you had given when I first started with Yokoko, you had given a presentation, and uh, the the empathy, the passion, um, the desire that you shared with all of us about, like, hey, you know, we do a good job, but we could always do better. We can always push ourselves just a little bit further. It was really, really inspiring. And when we were setting up these calls, I was like, oh man, I'm excited about talking with Joanna about this, because I know this is a passion of hers, and this is something that's impacted her in a pretty large way. Today, and you can jump in, Joanna, whenever you wish. But today, I know that our big three focuses, because accessibility is a very wide conversation. There's a lot of avenues that we can go down. There's a lot of things that we can talk about. There's the legalities of it. There's the design element, which we're going to talk a little bit about. There is integration elements and tools, and I mean, there's just so many different avenues that we can go down. It would take us hours upon hours upon hours to get through all of the things that we could theoretically talk about. So today we're live. We're going to go 9 hours. We're just going to go all day. Buckle up, everybody. It's gonna get good. No. We're still going to try to keep this nice and short and concise. But this episode is more of a introductory. We're going to focus on kind of those three big questions, which are: what is accessibility? Who is accessibility for? And why? I think the most important question: why should we care? Those are the three questions that we're really going to be focusing on today. I know that Joanna's got a couple things that she's going to kind of lead you on, as far as, like, if accessibility is important to you, here's some little tools that you can use. Here's some easy things that you can implement within your workforce and your staff and your organization that would help your website. But we're going to focus. Let's start with that. What is accessibility? And I'm going to throw it back over to you, Joanna. When somebody comes up to you and asks, hey, what's the big deal about accessibility? How do you respond to that question?
Well, personally, if I'm talking about my practice as a designer, it is just something that I need to take into account, because I'm designing for people. But how I would very plainly put it is, when you're taking accessibility into account when in the work that you do, it's like offering the same opportunities to your entire audience, right? And thinking about your audience as a whole, and as real people, and not just numbers, because we look a lot online, we look at a lot of data. Audiences are percentages of people, and we tend to look at higher percentages and prioritize those. But there's also practice of looking at edge cases, but it's not really, when we're talking about accessibility, we're not talking about edge cases. We're talking about a big chunk of your audience that's not necessarily reflected in that kind of data. So you're basically opening the door to the audience that you're supposed to be serving anyway, when you're working with accessibility in mind, as a default, not as
Sure.
an add-on, right?
Yeah.
So basically, when you think about accessibility, you're talking about people have to be able to perceive, understand, and navigate and interact with whatever you're creating.
Okay, so that's a really good lead into I think what I want to ask next, which is like from a website's perspective, and or from a website's, because let's kind of just focus and say, hey, this conversation is really going to be more designed and really uh, oriented around websites and so forth. I think websites can be technically functional, but then they're not accessible. Could you maybe give some examples of how that works, where the website, again, it functions, it's doing the thing that it's designed to do, or it's doing the thing that it's supposed to do, but it's not accessible for everybody.
Well, a website can be, I access it or you access it, Jared, and we're two different people. And we can navigate through the website, we can click on buttons, we can go wherever we need to go or accomplish any kind of task that we need to accomplish. But someone might be using a screen reader, for example,
Mm.
and it's not set up to have proper navigation for a screen reader, for example. It doesn't have the correct heading hierarchy, it doesn't have alt text, or I don't know. My mom's going to open the website and she's lost her glasses, or she's waiting for her glasses to come on, and she cannot see properly, and there's low contrast. That's one of the biggest problems. So there's a lot of details that guidance does help you, and also UX also, good UX practices help making something functional, and accessible as well. So it doesn't mean that it's not working, but it's not going to work for everybody in certain situations,
Sure.
or in a couple of cases, right? So yeah, an example, an easy example. I'm just going to use it because it's something that always comes up in especially in design. It's the color contrast. The color contrast is bad, and especially on those little links on the footer that were the last thing. They're not important for the overall visual balance of the layout. They're not like the main navigation. I see a lot of websites when I inspect the accessibility on those fail on contrast in those links. In their links, they're interactive elements, and they don't have enough contrast, for example.
So how do you like? How would somebody? Oh, I think we're still here in the what areas, what exists. So with color contrast as an example, like what's a way to be proactive to making sure that color contrast is accessible to all.
Well, you've got the guidance that that you should try to know, and if you don't know, like, keep checking until you know by heart what are the limits of the contrast ratio that you should be using. As a designer, nowadays there's so many plugins that you can add to whatever software you're using to design. There's plugins that are more software agnostic, that you can run an app and basically click on any pixel on your screen and check the contrast between two pixels, two colors, or even just not check the pixels, but add the X value if you want to check the X value. So that's an easy thing to do, and making sure even those plugins most of the times, and those little apps that you can use, they'll have snippets of the guidance that is in the WCAG rules, and they kind of display it, saying this is the minimum that you should have. It falls below, or this is AA, this is AAA. So there's a lot. We don't have to go into the technical things, but yeah, using a plugin or an app, just to, check and make sure that you're doing the right thing. Don't ask the person next to you. Go and check for yourself. That's the best way to do it, I think.
Yeah. So from a designer standpoint, what has been the tool that you found that has been the most useful for you as a designer?
For me, I have used. So let me check the name. I think it's color contrast analyzer. It was actually it's referred in Wakaga as one of the tools to check color contrast. That's really useful. And I mean, and also there's other things that you can do in terms of design, like working with the system. So you only check the color contrast once, and then you have a system in place that's always that makes sure that everything in every situation that you always accounted for the us being in the right place. So working in an organized way is good. I probably there's a lot of people who are working really well from building their templates, building their design systems. Um, that's a very good base to start from, but making sure that you are compliant at the level where you're creating those libraries and all those tokens and all the assets will pay off in the long run. And if anything needs to change, if a mistake happened, because people make mistakes, then you can always go, because you're working in an organized way, update the source, and then it will reflect in the entire work. So that's one of the things that I find very useful.
Yeah. Yeah, so earlier you were mentioning that empathy was a big driver in this understanding of accessibility, and I want to ask something that kind of crosses over into the who is accessibility for question, which is I think that we as humans can sometimes put things in their own little buckets or cups or whatnot, and it's very segregated and very separated and whatnot, a very small group mentality of, oh, this is just going to affect this small group of people over here or whatever. You had already started to kind of talk about how that mindset doesn't really work. Can you talk a little bit more about how your empathy and how your understanding of accessibility, like almost like Captain Planet, like when those powers combine and you were able to possible epiphanies of, oh, hey, this is affecting more than just the blind or the deaf or all the ones that I think when you hear the term accessibility, everybody defaults to. They automatically think of, oh, the handicap placard, and oh, the handicap placard means that you're in a wheelchair. Well, no, that's one possibility of this very long list of possibilities. But could you kind of give a little bit more context and depth into that? Who is accessibility for, and how your empathy has developed, and how that nurtures, and how that has helped guide you into that small group or out of that small group thinking?
So who is it for? It's for everyone, right?
Yes.
It's for everybody. We're not choosing sides. We're not putting people into boxes. It is everybody, and it's very easy to say it's everybody. Oh, that sounds really nice. Let's live in this perfect world where we're all nice, but it is for everybody. And when we were talking before about that, and you were just mentioning the misconception and the defaults that we fall into when you think about accessibility. It's this wrong idea of what a disabled person is, and what a disability is basically. And this is one of the things that I talked on that talk that you mentioned before. So you've got permanent and temporary and situational disabilities, and this is for me. It is what I empathized with. One of them was, for example, holding my very fragile and newborn baby and having to do other things, daily tasks in life. So that's situational. So it's context, right? It was a constraint in context, a very cute one, but it was a constraint, right? It could,
Acute constraint, right? Acute constraint. Yeah, I like that.
She was lovely, but she needed me a
Was.
lot. She needed me.
Now she's older.
Sometimes both my arms. So, but it is a misconception that we're talking about only a percentage of people. When you think about, if you get to a percentage of people that are considered disabled, we're talking about people who have checked the box saying that they are disabled. We're not talking about people who are saying I'm injured. You're not going to run the census every time asking, at this moment in time, how many of the how much of the world population is injured, temporarily injured, or temporarily holding a baby. and
Yeah.
cannot perform a task, or I don't know, doing some heavy lifting of grocery bags, or something like that. There's a lot of situations where you'll have constraint and you will benefit from a lot of things that you would say serve your default of what a disability is. For
Mm.
example, it's a lot easier for me to to access a building, to use the ramp if I'm holding my bike. If I cycle there, if I need to go in, it's a lot easier to, while holding my bike, to not take the steps, right? Or use a lift. It makes my life easier. It serves a certain purpose. Some people have to use that because they cannot use the steps, but a lot of people also use the ramp because it makes their lives easier. So it serves everyone a lot better than just the steps, for example. And there's two ways of accessing that building. So you have two ways of accomplishing the same task. Again, um, making sure that you're serving as many people as you can. Um, and there's always percentages going around when you talk about the estimate of disabled people being around 15% of the world's population. But when you're going to account for people with low vision, um, for example, or permanent temporary situational, it goes over 25%
Mm.
of the world's population. So um, I'm not great with numbers, and I don't spend my days looking at data. I'm very lucky. I call it all day. But no, I don't talk all day. But I don't think it's wrong to account for, let's say, a quarter of your audience might fall into a situation where they would benefit from you having had accessibility in mind when you were designing something for them. A quarter is quite a lot, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's one out of every four. So, I mean, even when you're thinking about if you've got a business, like let's just kind of shift the conversation a little bit here, and you've got a business, are you willing to say, hey, one out of every four people that are out there, we just don't want to market to, or we don't want to give information to? It's from just a business standpoint, it's like that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you not want to make
Yeah.
sure that your information is available to anybody that would like to use your services for X, Y, and Z, whether it's building websites or doing concrete work or running a school or whatever it might be. You can't really say, hey, one out of every four of you are not going to be able to process or access this information.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry, that doesn't make any sense business wise. So
And
it's
especially for digital, not having this kind of approach to the work will become increasingly more serious, because the aging population in 10 to 20 years, it's going to be the people who already grew up with using computers all the time, and the iPhone, and so we'll have, if we all get there, low vision problems, we will have mobility problems. Life is so complex and so unpredictable that if we don't empathize because it hasn't happened to us now, or we didn't see ourselves in the box of someone who would benefit for a little bit more contrast or for a bigger font, um, then I don't know, we're going to have a big problem. We When we are the age population, accessing content, if it's not done in an accessible way, and then the people who are trying to sell things to us, or inform us, even inform us, not talking, if we don't talk about money, getting access to information or to services that more and more are required. I mean, they're encouraged to be done online and not, uh, you know, by going into a building. Like, we've talked about this before, I think, not now, but in other conversations that we had. There's a lot of services now, like renewing your passport, or doing your taxes, or paying your bills, that we do online all the time,
mhm,
and we find it really easy. But if the platforms are not well designed, or were well built to account for everyone, because everyone, this is one of those things that it's not like a niche audience, right? It's for citizens, like a passport.
mhm.
um, accessibility needs to be taken into account, and it needs to be well built. Here in Portugal, we have um, like the finances, which is the website to do your finances online. They could use from better UX as well, and they have been. I mean, I see the website. I log in frequently, and I see them improving the UX, and I see them improving the color contrast and the font sizes. They're trying to do those steps, not all in one go, but they're trying to do those steps to get to a point where they're actually serving the broader population in a more conscious way, in a more universal way, right?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because I think in you answering kind of the combination of the last couple questions of like who is accessibility for, that small group, that empathy. I think you've actually in turn answered the why should we care as well. Like it feels like it's, and I could be wrong. So I'm gonna throw this back out to you, Joanna, and ask you if there's anything else that you would like to add in to possibly answering that question of why should we care. From what I'm picking up, it very much sounds like it's just straight up, as plain as I can put it. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do because it's for every single person that's out there. But what else would you like to add in on that?
This is my personal view as a designer, right?
Yes,
My
please.
as a designer, it's not just because it's the right thing. It's part of the job.
Mm.
It's part of the job, and it doesn't. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable if you've worked in a certain way for a long time, and you're used to have your default ways to resolve such an issue or design a specific UI. It is easy to fall back to what we have done until now. For me personally, I just took that, and it's not like I have a person who suffers for frustration of lack of accessibility in most digital products.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to me was I saw myself in that situation where, like I said, like I didn't self-identified as someone who had just been a mom and had a constraint, and I understood that was part of the population that accessibility is looking after, but and the rules are in place for those situations, not people but situations, right? And contexts. But I took it as part of the job. So if I am a designer and if I am designing for digital, and I never know, tomorrow it can be a library of resources, and today or yesterday it could have been an online shop in a past life. But if I am not if I'm not doing that as my way of work, I'm not being good at what I'm doing, right? I'm not being a good designer. And that this is the simplest way that I can put it. It's part of my job to do it responsibly, like you do your job responsibly, like a teacher will want to do their job responsibly, like a doctor. I have, like I said, I think before we went live, Gary, my husband, he's an architect, and he has to do his job responsibly, and he has to look at accessibility guidance to do his job. And for him, it's non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
For us, and unfortunately, in a lot of situations, it's changing a little bit, and a lot of people are talking about it, which is great. We should really try to not see this as a trend. It's just something that we should all be talking about it. Let's just talk a lot about accessibility, and do as well. I don't like just talking about it, but let's actually do stuff to change things. And in the physical world, an architect is accounted for not looking at guidance or accessibility, because you kind of get face to face with the frustration. In a digital world, you don't get face to face with the frustration because it's all virtual. You're not face to face with a person who fell off the stairs or couldn't use the lift was out of order and they couldn't climb the steps, for example. And here we get an email. It's a line of text, right? It's a message. It's a notification. It's not a person telling you in your face that you did a bad job, right?
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
that's why in digital it becomes kind of, it's a brief requirement. It's something that we need to check oh, by the way, let's see if the color contrast is in place now that we've done all the work.
So to close out here, I think you've kind of set yourself up for this really wonderful possible closing question for you. Um, you had mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing just a few moments ago. You're like, I'm a doer. Like I don't want to just talk about it. I want to do the thing that we need to be doing. So the individuals, the folks, the wonderful people that are watching this or maybe listening to it, they're just listening and they're doing something else while they're listening to this. What is like one actionable item that anybody can do? It's not going to cost anything. It's not going to cost any money. It'll just cost maybe a little bit of time. But what's one thing that you would recommend from your perspective? Because I think your perspective is interesting as a designer. I think a lot of conversations that happen around accessibility happen around, from a developer standpoint or alt text and things of that nature. But from a designer standpoint, it's very different and it's very unique. And I want you to know that I appreciate that you're so honest and you're forward and you're earnest about how this has impacted you from your point of view and being so transparent and so honest about that. But what would be that one thing that you would say, hey, John Smith, this is the thing that you should do if you're looking for one thing, one actionable item that you can do in the next 5 to 7 days?
Hey, John.
Hey, Joanna.
Hey, John. John Smith. So one very, very simple thing to do that I could advise to do is for designers, get a color contrast checker and start checking those colors. That's easy. I mean, we use Figma, so there's a lot of plugins for Figma. The other people who use other softwares, I'm sure there are plugins. If there aren't, if you go to a CAG or if you look online, because we know AI fetches everything for you today, and nowadays, just go color contrast analyzer, download app. It's like I said, it's just an app in your computer, so it's agnostic, so you can use it in whatever software you are using, run it side by side. And one thing that also I have found it very interesting to use when we are QAing, for example, a website build, we're off our design software, and even to QA websites that you like. I like this design. Let's QA. Let's check accessibility for this website that I really like, because I'm working from this reference. This is a really cool website. Is it accessible? So I use Wave. It's an extension for Chrome. It's free.
Nice.
You run it. It breaks the layout, but it will give you a list of how many contrast errors it finds, how many mistakes, and you can even see things that probably are not just for a designer, but for a developer. But it does. If you're working together with the development team, you can also raise those concerns. I don't know why this is happening. Sometimes it's just like a mistake or something that was missed, like it happens with us in design. I still make mistakes. I still I check the color contrast when I'm designing, and then I check it again once the build is done. Not because it wasn't done as per design, but because when I was designing, I designed a certain number of layouts, but I didn't account for all the layouts, all the combinations that were going to show up in the actual built website. So it's always good to. I mean, I like to check. I check if I have my keys before I leave the house, probably 5 times before I close the door. So I like to check and recheck to just make sure that I'm not making a mistake. But it's just because I assume that I'm making mistakes. So Wave extension for Chrome is a good, easy thing to do. A contrast color analyzer. Color contrast is one of the biggest mistakes that are raised. It's one of the easiest to fix. I think it's always interesting in once you use those tools, especially the Wave, you probably could identify the most common mistakes that your team does or is making, and then create documentation on the things that you need to account for. Go get the OCAG guidance. If you don't want to look at it, just go get the guidance and the links. And that's an easy thing. I think those two are easy, because the other ones that I had listed here for us to talk about, they are kind of a consequence. You can do checklists so you don't forget to check things. Um, one easy test to do as well is the tab test. Once you've got your website built, you can use your tab on your keyboard to see if the keyboard navigation is focusing the right items in the correct order for a screen reader, for example,
Nice.
or someone who's using the keyboard and not the mouse.
That's awesome. I mean, I think they're wonderful. If I were to give one, it would not be as great and probably as uh, uh, awesomely applicable as what you have given. And I know you have a list that has like significantly more. So maybe for the next episode, we'll go into the nitty gritty details. Here would be my suggestion from just John Smith over here. I'm a righty, so I have my mouse in my right hand. Um, Try to, and I did this the other day, and it was really, really difficult, but try using your non-dominant hand, so left hand for me, for just your mouse, or whenever you're like using your mouse pad or whatnot. I normally gravitate towards my right hand. Something that Joanna mentioned at one point in time, she was like, "Hey, sometimes you're holding a baby. You can only do something with your other hand." And I'm like, I wonder how difficult it would be if I had to use if I broke my right hand and it was not usable for 2 or 3 months. How difficult would it be to use like a mouse? And I did it for a couple hours, and I'm like, this is incredible. This is really, really wild. So if you are in an organization and accessibility is an important thing to you, there are some deadlines coming up, especially here in the US, about compliancy and 508 and all these other wonderful things. Yokoko can help you with that. So if you're watching this, or if you know of an organization that maybe just needs a little bit of help and it's a little outside of their expertise, we want to empower you, and we want you to know that there are tools and there are ways for you to be able to do this. But if you just need an extra helping hand, we are here to help you. Feel free to reach out to us, Yokoko, YOKOCO.com, and we can do an audit for you, like an accessibility audit, to let you know, hey, here are some areas that you might need a little bit of work on. Or if you're like, hey, no, we just need you to take care of it, we're happy to do that. Joanna and I are part of the accessibility committee, like I mentioned before. And this is stuff that we do. This is stuff we figure out. Hey, how do we make this process simple and easy, and give the individuals and the organizations that we work with the insight and the knowledge and the support that they deserve, because they're doing some really amazing things out there. So how do we support the people that are doing those amazing things? So reach out, let us know if we can help you in any form. You're welcome to reach out to Joanna. You're welcome to reach out to me, or through the website. Any one of those ways are possible. Joanna, I can't thank you enough for taking some time to chat with me, and hopefully Jenna's feeling better.
We hope you're feeling better, Jenna.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jenna, feel better. If it makes you feel any better, Jenna, I think Joanna's going to buy a robot. So we talked about that. Yeah. What kind of robot? What kind of robot are you going to get?
I want to get a Roborock. I like the name.
Like one of the cleaning robots?
Yeah, cleaning. To clean for me.
Man, I wish I had a robot. I'm the robot. I get to clean. Actually, I have kids, and they help. They do a really, really good job, but they're not robots. So
mine is not old enough yet, but she's showing good signs of becoming a good helper soon.
All right, Joanna, have a great rest of your day. Everybody else, thank you so much for being a part of today's show, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.